Right, won't be a second. Peter, you were a Hawker Typhoon pilot during the Second World War. Tell us about some of your mechanical problems you had.
Well, I remember one was possibly just before D-Day, I think. And I was taking off, we were doing long-range tank patrols over Brest Peninsula and down south to Lorient. And we had two long-range tanks, one under each wing, full of petrol, which gave us an extra hour or so of flight. I was taking off, I think it was from Tangmere, and just as I took off, one of my starboard tank fell off. I didn't even know at the time, but it dropped off, hit the runway, burst, and at the same time the metal caused sparks and it caught fire. So as I took off, I left behind me a long trail of fire along the runway. As soon as I was airborne, I realised that the aircraft was out of balance. I had a long-range tank on the port wing and nothing on the starboard wing. So I turned round. I could see what had happened then when I looked back at the runway, and I asked permission to land. It was not usual to land with full petrol tanks, but I, of course, at that point had full main tanks and one full long-range tank. Anyway, the ground control said, okay, land anyway. So I did. I had to land very carefully to make sure I didn't bounce at all. And I managed to land okay. Of course, I missed that operation. But otherwise, that was quite a hairy do. The other time mechanical fault I had was possibly due to enemy action, I'm not sure. But I'd done a show in Holland, beginning of 45, this must have been. And on the way back I glanced out of the side, then looked back to look ahead, found I couldn't see anything. The windscreen was completely covered in oil. Not black oil, it was clear oil, so it obviously wasn't from the engine. And I checked all my dials, I wasn't overheating or anything, and my oil pressure was okay. So I guessed it must be the oil from the constant speed unit of the propeller. So immediately I whacked the lever into fully fine pitch to make sure it turned to fully fine before it seized up. And then looked around and realised I was quite near one of the forward landing strips. So I made a circuit and landed there. When I landed, they did check and found that there wasn't any oil in the constant speed unit, and that had I gone on much further, it would have seized and possibly could have seized the propeller as well. But in any case, I managed to land all right. We contacted my squadron and they sent a jeep for me, and I got into the jeep and flew. They took me back to the squadron, and I'd completely forgot that I'd left my parachute in the aircraft. I was carrying my helmet, so I had that with me. And when I got back to the squadron, that was when I was posted back to Fighter Leaders School and missed my DSC. At the end of the war, the adjutant of the wing wrote me a letter and said that he should really have charged me for a parachute which I left in the aircraft, but he'd arranged for it to be written off for enemy action, so I didn't have to pay for it.
So, Peter, why did you miss your DFC?
Oh, that was in my second, on Typhoons, if you manage to survive halfway through your second tour of operations on Typhoons, which wasn't all that usual actually, most pilots didn't survive that long. If you did survive, you more or less automatically got recommended for a DFC. Now, when I went back to Squadron 183 Squadron after my rest, I did quite a few operations, and I was approaching my halfway point in my second tour when I was hastily taken off operations and posted back to the Fighter Leader School. So that's really when I missed my DFC. It's quite possible that if I could arrange to find out what had happened there, then I might have been recommended for it, and it was just ignored because I was no longer on the squadron. I just don't know. Anyway, I didn't get it.
Wasn't there also a Legion d'honneur up for grabs?
Oh yes, well that was just after D-Day, when we were firmly in control and invading France properly. The wing, that's 123 wing, was awarded 2 Legion d'honneurs. One, of course, immediately went to the group captain, who was in charge of the wing, and the other was, they drew lots for it, and I just wasn't lucky on that one anyway. That went to one of the squadron leaders. So I got a chance of Croix de Guerre and also a DFC, but missed them both.